At last, we come to the last three monster movies that Toho would ever make without the Godzilla character, and it would involve their second most popular character, Mothra. The Rebirth of Mothra trilogy was released from 1996 to 1998 and would be a more fantastical version of the Mothra character. This first movie, The Rebirth of Mothra, also known as just Mothra in Japan, the backstory to this trilogy is that there was once a civilization of little people called Elias. Basically miniature people, and two of our characters, Mal and Laura, are one of the last few survivors of their race. And they're pretty much the Mothra twins in this series. They have another sister named Belvera, who is very vengeful and hates humanity and basically wants to get revenge. So she summons a giant three-headed dragon called Death Ghidorah to wreak havoc upon humanity, but the Elias's protector named Mothra, who's actually the last member of an entire race of moths, comes out to the rescue. But this Mothra is old, and soon her age catches up with her, and Death Ghidorah starts kicking her ass. But not before her offspring hatches to join in the fight and become the new Mothra. So basically, from what I just described, this series is completely standalone. It is not connected to any of the Godzilla movies at all. Godzilla doesn't even exist in this series. Now, as I said with the original Mothra, it's my favorite Toho monster movie besides the original Godzilla, obviously. And I really like how it has a strong fantasy element with those little girls, this moth that is very peaceful. It is definitely more lighthearted than the Godzilla series. This is if you took the fantasy element and just upped it up to a new degree. Chris Cox from oneofus.net described this series as the creation of a kid who, in the same night, watched a Godzilla movie and watched a Studio Ghibli film and meshed them together. And that's actually a pretty legit theory. My take on it is that Toho's trying to create a more accessible version of the older Gamera films, where they're aimed towards kids, the main characters are kids, and they're definitely much more lighthearted than any of the other movies with the Mothra character. And the key word is try, because this movie's kind of a mess. I mean, that kind of applies for the whole trilogy, but this one is just, I don't know, it has a very weak opening. Like, I was actually nodding off and wondering when something was going to happen. The human characters are completely useless in this movie. And this is kind of a problem with a lot of the Godzilla movies from the 90s, is that you have your characters who kind of deliver exposition, but once you get to the big final climax with the monsters, or even any of the middle battles with the monsters, they just kind of stand from a distance and just watch everything happen. They don't do anything. They just stand there and watch the action take place. For the movie to really pick up steam, it's not until Death Ghidorah first shows up and causes destruction where I'm like, all right, let's get this thing started. And while Death Ghidorah is kind of a cool monster, he's kind of a lesser version of King Ghidorah. Not very memorable. He's basically just another three-headed dragon with the Ghidorah name on. But the movie does have its ups. It may not be entirely good, but it does have some good moments. The special effects are really fun to watch, and the monster scenes are entertaining. I love the new powers of the new Mothra. And the scene where the older Mothra dies is actually rather sad. It's probably the saddest scene I've seen in a Toho monster movie since Godzilla's death in Godzilla vs. Destroyer, the previous year in 1995. Because the scene involves the new Mothra as a baby watching her mother die, and it is so sad, and the music definitely does help. By this point, Akira Ifukube has officially retired after scoring a couple of movies in the second Godzilla series. But the music for the kind of movie this is kind of works, especially with Mothra's death, where it's really tragic. And it's more of an accomplishment when you realize you're crying over a giant fluffy moth that drowns in the ocean. So Rebirth of Mothra, in the end, while not a fantastic movie by any means, it's harmless. It is what it is. I mean, if you want something a little more lighthearted and you're into these kinds of movies, this isn't a bad one to watch. But if you want something that is a little more adult and not so oriented towards kids, then go watch some of the other Godzilla movies, like mainly from the 80s and 90s. Those are better versions of what this movie is. So I would say watch at your own risk. While I do like the movie, it is slow in the beginning. There are some incredibly goofy moments that might not work for most people, but the special effects are fun to watch and the monster fights are pretty damn cool. And that's my review for Rebirth of Mothra. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about the movie, if and when you see it. Like, comment, subscribe, share me with your friends, check out my official website, and don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and Periscope. This is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.